We're continuing our conversation with Colorado Republican candidate for Attorney General George Brauchler. Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the opioid epidemic. What would be your plans to address that here in Colorado?
Well, first, let me say this. General Kaufman just announced the filing of a lawsuit against Purdue, which is probably the biggest of the opioid manufacturers and distributors in the country. I don't think that'll be the last one. And I have to say, is the only candidate for AG who has ever set foot in a Colorado courtroom for something other than a tour, and the only candidate that's ever practiced Colorado law of any kind. I'm proud of the way that General Kaufman went at this. It was very deliberate, it was painstaking, it was designed to figure out what exactly the evidence is, how to apply it to the potential claims, and yet cover all of those Coloradans who have been victimized by these consumer protection violations, in my opinion. So I look forward to picking up that mantle from General Kaufman after the November election. I'd say the other thing we have to do, though, is we have to continue to work on the healthcare side of this. How we prescribe, to whom we prescribe, the other safeguards that we put in place to make sure there aren't too many pills out there on the street. And there's always going to be a role for public safety, and that is cracking down on whether it's heroin or whether it's pill pushers. Fentanyl is now a big thing on the streets these days. What you need is a seasoned, experienced hand in law enforcement to help tackle this thing from all the different angles.
So would you join on other states' attorneys general lawsuits against some of those pharmaceutical companies? Would that help hold them accountable?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm ever going to say, look, I will just look out there and see what we have and we'll just hold hands with them and run into court together. What I am going to do as Attorney General is to put Colorado first every step of the way. And if in evaluating what the potential claims are, I identify other defendants out there that other states have as well, we'll talk about the best way to pursue those cases. But I have no problems going it alone.
All right, so one of the things that you propose is creating a opioid epidemic narcotic and drug unit along with a domestic violence unit, SVU unit, expanding that we already have in Colorado, cold case unit, elder abuse unit, human trafficking unit. Particularly on that last one, what could these kind of specific units do to help address the problems?
Well, now remember, all of those units you just cited are the things I actually created at the district attorney's office out there in Arapahoe, Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln County. I don't know that we need to recreate every single one of those units because our current attorney general's office has a human trafficking prosecutor and a pretty darn good one. I think the best thing that an attorney general can do who is well versed in public safety and our criminal justice system is to provide support to all those other agencies out there, whether it's coordination, leadership, a combination of the both. And I'll give you an example. Out here on the western slope, outside of Grand Junction, you have a whole lot of square mileage. You have very few law enforcement resources to tackle black market marijuana grows, opioids, methamphetamine is resurgent now on the western slope. But you know who has a ton of our tax dollars? The Attorney General, $80 million of them. They don't all have to be spent catty corner to the Capitol. They can be pushed out here through the task forces you just asked me about.
So would that money be sufficient for the rest of this state, or are we gonna, this sounds like it's gonna cost some money?
I'm not sure that it's going to cost money. I mean, remember, as district attorney, when I got elected for this most populous jurisdiction in the state, I didn't change my budget for 2 years from what it was the year before. And we figured out a way to continue to grow our mission and be better at the things we were assigned to do. I see that being the same possibility here as the Attorney General. But I'll say this, you can't solve any of these problems just by throwing money in it. But what you can do is increase our odds of better addressing it by working together and treating Colorado like an entire single state instead of the Front Range and everything that ain't the Front Range. And I think by creating these task forces and taking some of those $80 million and pushing them out there, we do just that.
All right, George Brauchler is Republican candidate for Colorado's next Attorney General. You could find him and a bunch of other candidates tomorrow at the Club 20 Fall Conference.